Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, Jeff Courier, and Royce Coop, where we break down the stories shaping our country.
Hi, I'm Kevin Klein. Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm joined by two of my Winnipeg Sun colleagues. We have Jeff Courier and Royce Coop. Royce is also a professor of political sciences at the University of Manitoba. Gentlemen, let's talk about the train to nowhere from our Prime Minister, not my Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. Is this not him doing what his father did and giving the finger to Western Canada?
Looks to me like he's giving the finger to everybody in the country. He's just disappeared. I mean,
Well, yeah, but he's going to spend billions of dollars on a train between Montreal and Toronto.
Well, it's going to go to Quebec City, which is just a huge sop to Quebec. I mean, does you put a train between Montreal and Toronto? Okay, maybe that makes some sense. I mean, I'm not convinced,
No.
but putting it to Quebec City, it's just a total giveaway to Quebec. Yeah, I agree. It really is kind of giving the finger to Western Canada.
sorry, you're not getting a hockey team, but we'll give you a train.
Well, yeah, hey, here's the trade-off. But now, how does he have the power to do a deal like this?
Well, he is the prime minister. I mean, if you want to be mad at someone, be mad at the Liberal caucus that let him hang on during this leadership race. I thought that was a terrible decision, and we've gotten some examples of this from Trudeau, where he's acting like a lame duck prime minister, getting decisions in while he still can. He's going to be presumably gone in a couple of weeks, but they let him hang on, and he's able to make these kinds of decisions. It might turn out to be a boondoggle that he's actually handing to his successor.
So, Royce, would the party have been wiser to select an interim leader then, and just kind of as a caretaker to make sure that the lights are still turned on in the interim?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Someone without kind of skin in the game. Here in Manitoba, we know that when well, the PCs are still selecting their leader, but we're going to have the old leader stay on. Instead, we got an interim leader, and that's not a bad idea. Like, have someone to wipe the slate clean. Have the old leader move on. We know that Justin Trudeau is a big reason why Liberals are so unpopular right now. So why not clear him out sooner rather than later? But they let him get away with this. They let him pull this maneuver, and this is one of the consequences of that. These crazy vanity projects, and who knows what else is coming in the next few weeks.
And now he has his ministers saying that we should double the spending for the CBC. How do you stop that?
That better be stopped. There's no justification for that. Even if you think that the existence of the CBC is justifiable, and I think it probably still is on some level, because the CBC does things that nobody else does. Now, does it need to have a full network plus News World plus the radio networks? I think a lot of that has to be re-examined. But I would boil the CBC. I'd get rid of the main network, get it down to News World, and get the CBC to do what it does best, which is news programming, documentaries, and stay out of the entertainment business, stay out of competition with the private broadcasters, and do what you do best.
But how does it do news programming best? It's very one-sided.
Well, it is now. I mean, and that's been no secret, Kevin. I mean, you'll get no argument from me on that. I think that a house cleaning needs to take place, and an attitudinal shift, a major attitudinal shift, has to take place within the CBC, because it's become increasingly an irrelevancy to Canadians, because it doesn't represent Canada. It represents the intelligentsia between Bay Street and Sherbrooke.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the case for the CBC, I think, was always that in a big kind of diverse country that's separated by geography and mountain ranges, you actually need something like a national broadcaster so Canadians can get to know each other. So when I was a kid, there was the Beachcombers from British Columbia. There's On the Road Again with Wayne Rostad. We kind of laugh at these hokey shows, but they played a really important role in helping Canadians get to know one another, kind of bringing the country together. Well, that's not as important anymore now. The internet, there's new ways of getting to know each other, and really, like when you watch the CBC, does it really represent the most Canadians, the everyday lives of regular Canadians? No, no, not really. I don't think it does this anymore. And so, unless you can make that case for bringing that rule back, what is the point?
So
Yeah, I guess the days of Zosky and Barbara Frum and people like that who truly did represent and give a pretty good picture of what this country was all about. Those days are gone. And as you pointed out, Royce, I mean, as a kid growing up in Ottawa, I learned about the Guess Who by watching the CBC.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
So,
could learn about
But
each
again,
other.
as you say, those days are long gone.
so again, let's get back to the original point, though. If the government, if the Liberals, and they're coming out now saying they need to double their funding for, to protect Canada, how do you stop it? Because I mean, that's nonsense, right? I don't know how the CBC protects Canada. First of all, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know why they would say that. But how do you stop it?
Well,
Well,
government can, Parliament can overturn previous decisions. I mean, the funny thing to me is I wonder what Mark Carney is thinking of getting all these crazy decisions being made in the 11th hour by Justin Trudeau, committing him to spending. It's now Carney is going to have to say, like, no, Quebec, you can't have your bullet train. No, Toronto Intelligentsia, you can't have your huge increase to the CBC. He's the one that's going to have to deal with this. It's going to make life hard for him, I think.
But he can't. See, that's the thing on the bullet train. We'll tell you, the CBC, I guess, yes, he could. But again, not my prime minister is making this bullet train, so that other governments can't get rid of it without paying a huge financial penalty. I don't understand it. And Air Canada is a partner in it. And how much money do we give Air Canada? It seems like it's a small group of people that are members of the Liberal Party they're all connected in some way, shape, or form. They're all from either Montreal or Toronto, and they're getting all this money. I mean, and how do you stop? How do you stop that? I guess yes, Carney's going to get it, but how do you stop it? How do you get an election called?
well, it doesn't. I don't think an election is going to solve that. And if anybody thinks that Pierre Poilievre is going to change the dynamic where the power source of this country lies between Toronto and Montreal in that corridor, that's not going to change. That's where the power is. That's where the money is. That's where the votes are.
I'm
That's
not
not going
saying
to
that.
change, no matter,
I'm not
right?
saying that.
That's not going to change. An election's not going to fix this.
No, it's not.
No.
I guess
Do
the
you
one.
really think? Do you really think Pierre Poilievre is going to thumb his nose at Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa? Of
Yeah,
course
you're
not.
right.
He
No,
can't.
no, you're right.
Stephen Harper couldn't do it, and I don't think Pierre Poilievre will
And
either.
and I'll throw in just before we throw it to Royce here is that I saw Rebel News was interviewing Polyev, and now all of a sudden he's saying he'll cut his funding to the CBC, not defund anymore. He'll cut his funding. So
Yeah,
now that's
Okay,
changing.
I
I got a question for you. Why would you watch anything that the Rebel News does?
Huh? Because I check all news sources. I
Yeah,
look at them all.
I understand checking news sources.
think it just pops up on my X feed as well. But I noticed that as well. But I don't know. Pierre has said that he is going to defund the CBC so many times. That is the main applause line at any of his rallies. That gets the biggest cheer, the biggest round of applause. If he wins and he goes back on that promise, holy cow! I actually don't think he can. I think he's pretty committed to defunding the CBC if he gets elected. It'd be very hard to get out of it.
But he'll have to do it gradually, though, won't he, Royce? Can't just all of a sudden turn the tap off and shut the CBC down.
I have no idea what it would
I
look
think
like.
that's an electoral loser in Canada. I think might play well in his rallies, but I think if you shut the CBC down, that's an electoral loser.
And can he do it legally, Royce? I mean, isn't it the CBC legislated? So he would have to change legislation and many other factors to turn it off.
Sure. But he's probably going to win a majority government in the next election, and so he can do what he wants to. I mean, it might be, I'm not totally sure. I mean, I think it'd be a little irresponsible to just like kind of slice its head off on the first day of office, but sometimes moving quickly on these things is a good idea. But I just can't see him. This is a guy, he's very tuned into the base, very tuned into meat and potato conservative voters. I just can't see him going back on that. It would be very hard, make life very hard for him.
Hmm. Well, I guess, he's changing his maybe the way the question was answered, but he did say he would reduce the funding to the CBC. He wouldn't cut it. I agree that you'd probably have to do it slowly. I think if you're going to do something, sometimes it's best. Like if you're going to cut off my finger, I'd rather you use an axe than use a butter knife, right? I mean, if you know you're going to cut it and you're going to sit there with a butter knife for a couple of years, just get an axe and cut me out. So, I mean, I would look at it that way. But I think, what really brought me to this is I saw the train investment, which is obviously to buy votes in Ontario. So it's easy for us to say, yep, absolutely, Canada's tired at the Liberal Party, but all the polls are coming out saying it's a close race now, and you're giving billions of dollars to all your friends in Ontario and Quebec. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a landslide. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I hope I'm incredibly wrong. But anyways, let's move on from that to the fact that you've got all of this happening. You've got let's double the spending on CBC. Let's put this bullet train in place that is never going to get there, but we'll just pad everybody's pockets with it. And nothing on the US tariffs. Nothing.